First timers? Welcome, 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 welcome. Returners? One person, one returner, two returners? All right, well, how we structure it is initially we're going to do an interview for the podcast / an opportunity, hey Jared, opportunity to learn about someone who has gone quite far in a very short period of time. Impressive what you've been doing. And then at the end of the interview, open it up to questions. So feel free to think of questions that you come up with during the interview. And then we'll simply get up, probably break up into groups again. Yeah. That was pretty good. Probably have like, 50, 60 people here today. So we'll figure out the groups later. But essentially how that will work is we'll have 5 or 6 groups of 10 or so just around, and then you'll follow this format here. And then that's it. So that will be the structure. A little bit different from other groups I imagine that you've attended. So cool. Yes, and the Facebook group, bestevercincygroup.com. That's our for this. Did you just do that? Smart. Okay, I just noticed. Yeah, smart. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah, because there's always a challenge. So we only allow people who have attended this meetup to be in the Facebook group. We're very protective of that group. So now that you have attended the meetup, you may add yourself to bestevercincygroup.com. It'll redirect to the Facebook group, and Grant will make sure that he accepts your invite. Sound good, Grant? All right. All good?
Yeah. Yep, we're good.
Okay, cool. Sweet. Best Ever listeners, how you doing? Welcome to the Best Real Estate Investing Advice Ever show. I'm Joe Fairless. This is the world's longest running daily real estate investing podcast where we only talk about the best advice ever, and we don't get into any of the fluffy stuff. With us today, Will Hall. How you doing, Will?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, and we are here live in Cincinnati at our monthly meetup. So Best Ever listeners, if you don't live in Cincinnati but you want to travel, well, feel free to join us. Will, who I'm interviewing, is actually from Indianapolis. Yep. Indiana. We've had people from Tennessee, from Detroit, from all over. And certainly if you are in Cincinnati, then come hang out with us, or Dayton, or Columbus, or even Cleveland. So with that being said, a little bit about Will. He's been investing in real estate for 5 years. He's the founder of Nuparadox, an investing company focusing on wholesaling, rehabbing, and rentals. They do about 160 transactions per year. Did I get that right?
Yeah, 168 last year.
168 transactions last year, based in Indianapolis, Indiana. So with that being said, Will, you want to give the Best Ever listeners a little bit more about your background and your current focus?
Yeah, sure. So my wife and I started in real estate about 5 years ago. It'll be 5 years in June, so we're just almost there. And both came from corporate America. Did it on a part-time basis, and it was just really myself. And then my wife on the back end, and we just slowly started growing our company. Within a year, we did enough deals that I felt comfortable enough to step out of my corporate America job. And then probably a year later, Mandy stepped away from hers, and really we just grew our team slowly, little by little, and just kept adding one person at a time, and kept growing our business every year, and just staying focused and staying in our niche. And 5 years later, here we are.
What was your corporate job?
I was in medical device sales.
Okay.
So did that for about 12 years, and actually really loved the company I worked with and what I was doing. Just the industry was changing, and I had the entrepreneur bug, and I ultimately got into it just to get buy and holds, and then so flipped a couple of houses to purchase my buy and holds, and then do it as a side hustle, and then it just kind of turned as I really like this. I think it's something we could do full time. And took off and did it.
Medical sales, that's a lucrative job typically.
Yep.
what gave you the confidence that you could match that or increase that from real estate?
Yeah, I think that's really, it was. I was, from a financial standpoint, I wasn't really looking to make more money. It's not what I got into it. So I did have that luxury of having a really good job, along with my wife, that we could do this, and all the money that we were making in the business, we were just putting right back into it, whether it was in marketing or people or personnel. So, I'd say once I got up to about 60% of what I was currently making, I felt comfortable enough, and we don't live a very high lifestyle, and I just felt like our debt ratio was good. I think I saw the momentum coming. So it was like, even though we were at 60%, every month even, it was climbing and climbing and climbing, and I felt more stability with it. My wife also had a really good job and so I felt like we left that. We still have our benefits. We still have her income.
What was she doing?
She was in the pharmaceutical sales.
Wow, double whammy. Medical sales and pharmaceutical sales. Okay.
Right.
Those are two high income earners.
Right.
Okay. And so you left yours.
Yep.
And then when you saw 60% of your income being generated from real estate, and you still had hers and the benefits, at what point did she make the jump over to real estate?
So then it was about 2 years into it. So she, maybe not quite that, but I feel like she, for at least 8 months after I had quit my job, she was still working. So we still had that comfort zone. And then, quite honestly, we had 3 kids, and then she got pregnant with our 4th, and that was kind of the, between that and the business was kind of the breaking point that it probably doesn't make any sense for her to work anymore. And every time we did that, it was a little bit of like, I hope this is the right move, so it was still scary even when she quit, because you have to company cars and all that stuff, and the health insurance, and but it all worked out.
So let's talk exact business model. What were you doing to generate income at the start?
I was primarily wholesaling. As a matter of fact, we were almost all wholesaling. We were probably at that point 85% wholesaling, and then I'd have 1, maybe 2 flips going on at a time. We didn't have really any rentals for the first couple of years because we're just trying to get the business growing. So we were primarily wholesaling for the most part.
And how did you set up the system so that you were generating? And how much income were you generating in year 1? Approximately.
Yeah, approximately in year 1, I feel like we did close to 100,000 in year 1. In
income.
In income.
Okay.
I think I have to go back and look at all the expenses that we had kind of leading up to that. But yeah, I was.
So 100,000, 6 figures year 1 in income. What were you doing to generate that?
I was doing all these types of meetups right here. This is what changed my whole thinking. Was I think I went probably about 4 or 5 months wholesaling and just trying to figure it out on my own, and then I went to a meetup and I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt like it was possible. You're hearing people doing deals much bigger than you. You're meeting like-minded people in the same mentality. And I just started networking, and then I go to another meetup and another meetup, and I started making all these connections, and I find a landlord that was looking to buy houses and a flipper that's needing houses, and I just started being a reliable source, and I start riding these guys' coattails like, okay, what's your criteria you're looking for? What do you need? And I really based my numbers off of what they need to buy. I know they need to be at 40 grand, so I know if I need to make 20 grand, then I got to buy it at 20. I just backed it down, and I used them as my back-end buyers, and then my speed and my momentum kind of took off, from there. And it took a lot of work. It was probably 6-7 months of really going to these meetups on a consistent basis every month. Because you see people once, twice, 3 times maybe, but once you're there 5, 6, 7 times, you're like, okay, this guy's, he's serious, And so I think that's what really gave me my boost, my momentum.
Would you say you were attending more frequently than average investors were attending meetups?
I didn't miss them.
How many were you attending?
We attended anywhere between 3 and 4 in Indianapolis.
A month?
A month.
3 to 4 a month. Any of them that you hosted, or all?
Nope, just like this. I just came and was just networking.
And how far is Indianapolis from here, from Cincinnati?
From Cincinnati, we're about an hour and 45 minutes.
So about 2-hour drive. Right. You came here, and you came here to attend this meetup before, right? Last month you came here to attend, which is kind of a microcosm of your approach that you took in year 1.
Right.
When you were looking to attend meetups locally, were there some that you chose over others, or some that you found to be more a better use of your time than others?
Yeah, there was. I mean, there was definitely some that I thought, but I went to all of them just because just for the networking and people, right? And so some of them provided better content than others, but at the end of the day, it's the meeting after the meeting and the connections that is why I was really there, you know.
And what's your approach at a meetup? And everyone in this room is about to learn it after this interview.
Yeah.
But for people who aren't with us, what's your approach at a meetup when you're meeting people?
I mean, it really is to figure out who's doing what, when and where, and who's, it's the whole, you know, it's like the dating thing, right? Who's really doing the deals, who's not doing the deals, who and what kind of deals they're doing. And you go there to give, you know, and so I just went there very open-minded. I tell my story. I tell everybody I can talk to, this is what I'm doing. I'm just getting started. I'm brand new. I wouldn't play like I'm an investor that's done a lot of deals. I know what I'm doing. And I find the more I was very transparent, open to people, the more they were willing to help me. And, you know, to this day, we help a lot of new wholesalers. Like, you know, looking back, they're a big resource to us. Like, if we can find those guys and help them tell them what we need, and so they can bring us deals. So the table's kind of turned, and it's nice being on both, you know. And now that I know what it's like being on the other side, so I know how to treat those people and make sure they want to keep coming back and bringing us deals and make it an easy, you know, transaction for them.
Year one,
Yep.
6 figures.
Yep.
Last year, 168 transactions?
Right.
168 transactions. How much income is that?
We grossed in, we brought in, it was 2.3 million.
Wow.
Yeah, gross.
So how do you go from year one, 100,000, year 5, 2.3 million?
Yeah, so we did it very slowly and organically, oddly enough. The first person I hired, I was still working full time, and she's still with us today. Just helped me with some of my follow-up calls. She did a little bit of closing. She just kind of did whatever I needed her to do as I was still working full time. We then shortly after that hired a VA who then started taking all my incoming calls, because I was taking all the calls, going on all the appointments, doing all the closings, selling the properties. I mean, it was literally just me. So then we added a VA, I want to say roughly a little after a year, or right at a year, when I got started. So we had her and a VA, and then about 8 months later to the 2-year mark, we hired Noelle, who's here as an acquisitions person. So then her and I were kind of both doing the buying, and she kind of took over that role. And then after that, so she was doing all the buying, I was doing all the selling and all the other back end stuff. Mandy was still doing all the administrative work. And then I hired Amy, who's here also, dispositions. So then she started handling my dispositions. And then just funny, because every time you work yourself out of your job, you're like, man, how am I still busy? Like,
yeah.
You know, I just got rid of like all this on my plate. So then we did that, and then after we hired Amy, then we just got into added another buyer, another acquisitions person after that, and then we hired inside salespeople after that, and then our pipeline got big enough that we needed inside salespeople, so we hired a couple of inside salespeople, and then we just hired 2 more acquisitions people this month, and a VA. So we're constantly growing and adding and trying to expand that. Noelle moved in from acquisitions to our operations side, because our operations side was getting busy enough that my wife was completely overwhelmed, and so she kind of handled that part. So and luckily, all of one person in 5 years. I mean, we haven't lost anybody, and we've kept, you know, we hire with intention, and you know, base that off our core values, and try to keep people and promote within.
That seems like it could be a lot of overhead.
Yeah, it is.
And if
That's where the 2.3 goes.
Yeah. What is the profit margin?
Yeah. We hover around the 42%. Range.
After all expenses?
After all expenses.
Wow. So you personally pocketed over $1 million last year.
Yeah, we had a partner at the time in the business as well. So, but yeah. So.
And do you structure the compensation so that it's heavily focused on incentives or performance versus just salaries? so that you're not stuck if you don't do
That's probably
168
what's
deals?
really helped us, and the reason we've done that is because our inconsistency of deal flow and protecting ourselves as we were growing. So we do have a couple people who are, who have guarantees or who have salaries, but everyone else in our company is 100% commission driven. Even Noel on our operations side is paid on a per deal basis. So we do. I'm a big believer in that, and I think it's healthy for the company, and it's also healthy, keeps our people engaged, and when we do well, they do well. And when we're hurting a little bit, we need deal flows, they're feeling the same pain as I am, and it just keeps everybody in alignment with each other.
Do you think as I'm assuming you're a high income earner in your sales job, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. As a high income earner in your sales job, it's easier for you to scale a company from a mindset standpoint and get those larger numbers and have the comfort to hire people and build a team than if you did not have, were at a higher income job? And why do you think that is?
Well, I think that's what, you just use it, you have the stability and the comfort of, you're talking about like.
Just the mindset, like you're used to bigger numbers.
You are used to bigger numbers, and I think, it's, even my wife today and Noel probably say the same thing on the operations side. They're always like, slow down. We should probably think about this, what are you doing? I think that there's just a certain level of confidence that the people you surround yourself with and your ability, and once you've kind of done some things that it's going to work out, we're going to be fine. We can change this, we can do that. But I also go back to, it's not just being a high earner, it's really being around who you surround yourself with. And if you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of like-minded people, you believe in yourself, and you believe that it just gives you a better sense of, just knowing that you can do it,
Year 1 through 5, year 1, 6 figures, year 5, 2.3. Was it spread out evenly in growth, or was there one year that shot up more so than others?
No, I would say it was pretty consistent. It was a pretty even. It was every year is just nice big, jumps on it. So as we got into year 3, we got more into rehabbing, and exit strategies started changing, and we could buy a lot more deals, and especially as the market's changed and gotten tighter, we've had to get our exit strategies. It's what's really enabled us to kind of bob and weave. And so I feel like that's helped us a bunch. So we had more flexibility and more ways to maximize our profits.
And why switch from wholesaling to rehabbing in year 3?
Because the market was kind of pushing us to do it, honestly. It was kind of forcing us to do it because the deals were getting scarcer, the competition was getting more, and in order for us to grow, we still wholesale probably almost 80%, 75%, 80% of our own deals that we bring in-house, but then we buy a lot from wholesalers, and then those are the ones that we're rehabbing, right? So we're using our own deals to kind of keep the cash flow running, and we're taking other people's deals that otherwise wouldn't be an opportunity for us and making something out of nothing, if you will. So that's really why we did it. I love wholesaling. I've loved the model. I love the scalability of it. But as the market got tighter and tighter and tighter, it just kind of forced us to, and our rehabs are very light. We do a lot of turnkey type of rehabs, or we do, we've done some monster projects, but honestly, we try to keep our rehabs anything 40,000 and less in rehab. Like we're not out there moving walls and trying to figure out, all the TV stuff. It's very simple: paint, carpet, mechanics, roofs, windows, in and out type of stuff.
If you had to look objectively at your business relative to others that you're competing against in Indianapolis, what would you say you all do especially well? Not that they don't do well, but you all do especially well.
I think we do 2 things really well. We're very well branded in Indianapolis. Amy goes to all of our meetups to this day. So we believe in these things, and when I couldn't go to them or didn't have time to go, Amy really started going to them, and she's the face. We've gotten behind a lot of these. It's the way we do business, the transparency. People, I always said, my reputation means more than my pocketbook, and we live by that, we make sure our investors are well taken care of. We make sure we promote deals the right way. We make sure that we're ethical in everything what we do, because there is so many wholesalers in the business, and they're like they're daisy chaining things, and people know that when they're dealing with us, they're dealing with the direct. We got control of the situation, and things move smooth. And then I think the other thing is really our exit strategies. I mean, I hold our own properties for rentals. I'm the bank on properties. We rehab and retail. We do some turnkey stuff, and then we wholesale. So I think it's just having multiple exit strategies that really lets us bob and weave in the market.
What's an example of a deal that if you didn't have access or think of different exit strategies, you wouldn't have done otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain areas of town that when I say, everybody calls them different, we call them kind of land contracts, but it's basically where it's people that I'm the bank on them for like 12 years, and they put like a 10% down on the house. And the houses are usually anywhere from $70,000 to $120,000 houses, so they're higher price point houses. They gotta be in good shape. A wholesaler sent me a deal that he was wanting too much as a buy and hold. It didn't make sense. For a rehab, it didn't make sense.
Do you remember the numbers?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, so like 70 grand was the purchase price on it. And then we ended up putting, I think, like 10 grand into it, so we're at 80. And then we ended up selling it, on like 120, something like that, I think, with 10% down. And so it just doesn't, if you're 80 grand and the rents there were like, I don't know, rents there are probably like 1,100, 1,200, but for us to be able to make it make sense on the other end. So I'm thinking of that deal. There's another deal actually on 46th Street, a house I bought. This is where I got a little too aggressive.
Let's hear it.
Mastermind. Yeah, this might be like the worst one ever, right? So I get all the pictures from another wholesaler, and he's like, oh, it's a really clean house, and it was a really clean house, great area. And I'm like, dude, I love this house. And he's like, you better hop on it, there's a lot of people on it, same old story, right? So I'm like, all right. So he goes, now I'm gonna be honest with you. He goes, it's right by 465, which is our outer loop, and there's a wall there, but honestly, when you're inside the house, you can't even hear, the noise. I'm like, all right, I'm not reselling, I'm keeping it as a buy and hold. I'm like, as a rental, I'll keep it. And I pulled comps in the area, it looked great, right? So I'm like, all right, so I was like, I bought it, put the earnest money into him. I flew in the next morning, I'm like, I better just go check this out, which I rarely go see him. I just had this feeling. I get there, and there's a 50, 60 foot wall from about me to maybe that wall over there, where the interstate's just going by, and I'm like, oh my God. I called him, like, I don't think I want this deal. I'm like trying to back out of this, and they're like, oh. And so, and I'm like, I'll never be able to rent this for what I thought I could rent it for, and I'll never be able to.
Could you hear the traffic inside?
Oh, you could hear the traffic inside. So I'm like, I go, you didn't tell me it was in front of the house, like it's the front of the house. He goes, I told you there's a wall there. He probably did. I'm just like, I'm moving super fast. So at any rate, it wasn't a really good area, and we sold it on land contract, and I think we sold it for like 78, and I didn't put any money.
What'd you buy it for?
46.
Okay.
And then so that ended, and they put like 8 grand down. So and it was because it was a great house. It was a massive garage, and a lot of these people are blue collar people that buy these. So they're usually, the reason they can't buy them is because they're usually self-employed, don't have the credit, but they definitely have the cash and the money. But they love these big garages because a lot of times they're working in construction and all that. So it worked out, and it saved me out of a deal. But there's one where I would have been stuck, and I could have kept it as a rental, but it would have never amounted to what I needed to, number-wise, what it'd be.
How do you find your land contract people?
We have a company. We have a company that finds them, that sources them out. They work.
A third-party company?
Third party.
Which one?
Yeah, that does it. Libertad.
Huh.
Yeah. So they are big in doing these. They've been doing them for years, and they have a huge clientele that follows them and does them. And so they constantly have people looking to do those. So we just kind of plug it into their system, and they go find, look and try to match them up.
So you go to this company, you say, I've got a house.
Pay them a fee.
Right, I've got a house.
Yep.
Want to do a land contract, and then they got a database. You pay them a fee.
Yep, exactly.
And then they match you up with someone.
And then we handle it from there, and we manage the property from there. Yep.
I hadn't heard of that.
Yep.
What type of fee is it? Is it one-off, or is it based on a percentage of the transaction?
Yeah, it's based on a percentage of transaction, but it's 6%, just like if you were, so it's 6%. So, and that's us doing it. And it's been a great tool for us because we also sell to a lot of investors who use them, right? So I'll buy it and I'll wholesale it to them.
Right.
And they'll be on it. And it works, it's just, the numbers on it are usually good. It's very secure. These people do not default unless any typical life situation would happen to somebody. But, you know, when you're putting $8,000 down on $80,000 house or $10,000 down on a $100,000 house. I mean, you got people who are committed and they take immaculate care of it. They treat it as their own because it is, you know. So it's just another. I love rentals, buy and holds, because ultimately I want to have those forever. But it's nice to have those for 10 or 12 years, and you know you got to keep. They'll be gone in 10 or 12 years because they'll pay them off. But you just kind of keep filling the funnel back up.
What's your best real estate investing advice ever?
Be consistent. You know, I think no matter how much, whatever you're doing, and just be consistent. And if it's the amount of marketing, a guy told me that way back when I asked him how much I should advertise. He just said, do whatever you want, but be consistent. Don't advertise 4,000 and back down to nothing the next month and then jump back up to 6 and then down. So I think it's just being consistent, whatever you do.
And what form of advertising has been most effective for you?
Direct mail.
Any special slant that you take on direct mail?
No, not really. It's pretty basic. I truly believe it's all about the timing of it. And
in what way?
I think a lot of times it's just the timing of that's when you're hitting these people, right? Because I send a letter out in April and a guy's got a tenant. He's not even thinking about it. Come June and the tenant trashed out the house and he's got a tenant turn. He gets the letter. So I think that's where it goes to consistency. It's hitting these people. Often, because you just don't know when the pain's going to be. You don't know when grandma has to go into assisted living. You don't need anything like that. I think there's a lot of letters out there, and there's certain ones that work better than others. But I don't try to outsmart the system. I just be consistent in what we do and be really good at our follow-up, once we go out on these calls. And if they do calls and the timing's not right, it's just being consistent in that follow-up and trying to catch them when the pain is.
What is the frequency you're sending them out?
So we do once a quarter.
Okay.
They hit a rotation once a quarter, and we may even bump that up a little bit. So
how come?
In certain areas, I just think even once a quarter can be, you miss out on the timing aspect. I mean, there's times when I get a deal from another wholesaler, and you're like, oh man, that's in our pipeline, and you go back and you look at it and you look at the notes and we just didn't catch them, at the right time. We probably didn't follow up with them as much, and to me, I just rather spend a little extra money. Hit them a little more. They're already getting a ton of letters anyway, so they don't. It's not like they realize you sent them a letter 3 months ago versus a month ago, in my opinion. So I don't know. We'll experiment and see. Maybe I'm wrong on that. So. Is that the primary way you market for new leads? Is direct mail? Yeah. Okay. Yep. Do you do anything else, or? Yeah, we have some PPC and SEO stuff we do as well. And then other wholesalers. I mean, we did, of those 168 deals, we did 128 of our own marketing, and then 40-some from other wholesalers. How do you structure that when you partner with another wholesaler? We just buy it off of them. You just pay their fee and move on? Yeah. Okay. And then what do you do? I guess you rehab it or do land contract? Yeah, typically they're either rehabs or keeping them for buy and holds. Okay. Yep. Got it. We're going to do a lightning round. You ready for the best ever lightning round? Ready. All right, let's do it. First, a quick word from our best ever partners. All right, best ever book you've recently read? 10X Rule. Best ever deal you've done? My first deal. Why? Because it was a lot of hard work. We sat, my wife and I both were on the point. It was one of our very first house. It was the very first house we bought. Fleas all over the place, fleas up down our legs, and I'm just like, Manny's like, would you please quit? I'm like, I couldn't even figure out what it was. I was like, I didn't realize people had fleas in their houses at this point. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, but I think we worked it. It took us like 60 days, and we made like $2,500. And we went out and we celebrated after that, and it was the best. I don't know that I've made a lot, we've made 20 and 30 and 40 grand on deals before. I don't know I've ever had the same feeling as that first deal when it's like, it's real, it can actually work, and it happened. And then then after that, it's like, okay, now we can do this. We just gotta figure out how we make more money doing it. What in your system did you optimize from that deal to, say, deal number 5? I think networking is having a wider range of people that we could sell these things to.
Okay. What's a mistake you've made on a transaction?
The 46th Street, buying a house with a wall, 60-foot wall, was a pretty big mistake. Honestly, that's probably been one of the very few houses I've bought.
On a deal?
Yeah, we've lost more money. We lost money on probably 7 or 8 houses last year. So we got aggressive, and you get, and that's what happens. I think the total of all the losses was probably under, I don't know, it was probably 25 grand or maybe less than that. So it's just a bunch of like 3 grand loss, 5 grand loss. Holding costs will eat you alive. I figured that out on these really skinny deals that we got aggressive on.
Any consistent theme when you look at those 7 or 8 deals?
Yeah. Bought him off the wrong guy.
Noted.
But he already sold me 4 or 5 before I could put the pieces together.
What about it? That was it that you didn't see through about how he was marketing it? That now after you've bought him, you're like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't see that.
Well, we do buy a lot of houses off of what they. I mean, we buy them sight unseen, and there's some trust that goes into that, and we always realize there's risk in that. There's videos and pictures that they send us, and we feel like we know these areas well enough. But we bought them. We used private money on them, and then we couldn't get them moved, and the money's your holding costs, and we just kind of shoved them to the side because we had other projects going. Like we'll just figure something out on these, and the repair costs got more than what we anticipated. The holding costs got higher than what we anticipated, and then ultimately, I mean, they were deals we thought, hey, we'll buy off of him, we'll resell it, and we'll make 8, 10, maybe 12 grand on them. Like they weren't like we weren't really doing anything with these things. Come to find out, we couldn't sell them as much as we were. They were in worse shape than we thought, and we bought them at a very busy time when they sat on the back burner, and then the next thing you know, you're not making any money on them.
Were the pictures and videos not representative of the condition?
I don't blame him as much as I blame us. That's on our end. I feel like as long as I don't think he was doing anything completely shady or anything. It's just we weren't getting we trusted him more than we should have. Let's just put it that way.
And certainly not implying that he was doing things shady. I'm just trying to get to the root of how do we, if someone comes across a deal, what about it can they look at that perhaps you weren't on the surface, other than going to visit it? I mean, I guess
Right.
Clearly that solves that challenge. But as you're scaling, do you now visit all the properties?
We since then hired a project manager that goes out and verifies everything.
Okay.
But I still buy a lot of things sight unseen, and I think, guys, especially when you're doing this many deals, I know my risk in this deal, and I knew the risk in those deals. We may lose 3 or 4 grand on that, and I'm okay with it. Everything I do is a worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is I miss something, we lose 5, 6 grand, and I'm okay with it. I wasn't okay with that year one, but now, because I know the more I do that, the more I win, right? So maybe we make 100 grand that year in profits by me being aggressive, and maybe we lose 20 because of it, but at the end you're washing out to 80 and you're okay with that. So it's just a risk reward, I think. So
Best ever way you like to give back?
I volunteer at Riley Children's Hospital once a week, and that's definitely the best. I've been doing that for, 13, 14 years probably.
And how can the best ever listeners learn more about what you got going on?
Go to Nuparadox.com. That's Nuparadox.com. You can get a hold of Amy, who handles a lot of our clients there, or you can contact any of us directly if you need help.
Well, Will, enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Everyone enjoy the conversation. Yes. Thank you so much for being on the show, talking about year 1, 100K, year 5, 2.3, how you got that consistent growth. Clearly the team is what made that real growth take place, as well as learning along the way and being able to adapt to the market and pivot, as well as having the multiple exit strategy. So thanks again for being on the show. Hope you have the best ever day. And now we will open up to some questions. And Slocum is chomping at the bit to ask a question. You're like, don't stop, I got a question.
2, do you market to multifamily owners?
We do not. We do up to 4 plexes is all we do on the multifamily side.
Okay, but you will to 2, 3, and 4. You
Oh yeah,
to market
absolutely.
to them?
Yeah.
Okay, and what makes you decide to hold and rent out a property instead of sell it or wholesale it?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Will you repeat the questions further?
So his question is, basically how do I evaluate a property and know what extra strategy I want to do in it, right? Whether it's buy and hold, wholesale, or rehab. A lot of that has to do, I set a personal goal for me this year to buy 3 rentals a month. And so when I'm looking at these, I have certain criteria that I'm meeting, and I just look at those criteria in those areas, and that's how I kind of determine if I'm going to hold the property. There's other times when it's like, there's not enough skin in the game for us to really make any money on the deal, but I like it, as a rental, and sometimes I'll choose that as it goes. But honestly, a lot of it's timing for me is cash, right? How much money we have on projects of whether, am I going to wholesale this house or rehab it? And even if I could potentially make, call it 35 in Indianapolis for rehabbing it, if I can make 15, 18 on it, and we're in a position where we got 5 or 6 projects, I'm all about speed. I've always heard money loves speed, and for me, it's just all about speed and keeping us moving. So it's a lot about timing, money, and then just certain areas. To your point, like the big projects, and they often are the ones that you can make a lot of money on. We wholesale a lot of those because I'm looking for like the $25,000, $30,000 rehabs, like so I can keep things moving. And when you're doing as much volume, it's just I don't want any bottlenecks in the business. Yeah.
Yeah, you've sustained an incredible amount of momentum for 5 years. And I think you said at the beginning of the podcast that you're also a father of 4,
Yeah.
which is really impressive to me. Has your motivating force or your why stayed the same as your business has grown, or is that something that evolves?
No, I think it does change. I mean, at least it did for me. I mean, because the why at the very beginning was just to get a few rentals, maybe 7, 8 rentals, right? Now it's much bigger. My wife and I started. My wife did. First off, my wife deserves. I mean, she's at home and in the business and does 4 kids. So.
Who's the wife?
Yeah, and so so the why does change. I've hired a lot of people that I know, and friends and family, and really, Amy's here, Noelle's here. It's really about surround yourself with really, really good people. I mean, the more I'm in the mix, the more things will get screwed up, right? I went on what we call a buy call, which is I went on an appointment and got a contract, right, when I was training. Everything I tell my people to do, I've done the opposite, right? She's like, well, we're just on the way here. She goes, all right, so I got, with our private money, I got it all lined up. And I go, did you get a rehab? Did you get a scope of work? Rehab? For that? She goes, no, you didn't tell me we were rehabbing it. Hell yeah, we're going to rehab it. I need an extra scope, So, the why has changed because we started a foundation called the Dent Foundation. It means nothing right now other than that we just set it up so we have money to put aside and to do that. And my goal for the 3 rentals for the next 10 years makes us have 360 rentals is for that to fund our foundation, right? I hate to say it, my kids will hate to hear it. I could care less. I don't know that I'll ever leave any rentals to my kids. I really don't. That's not, the legacy isn't I hope I can build this big portfolio and then my kids will be able to just go blow every dime. So it's all about the foundation. And so I think that really fuels Manny and I. And it's also seeing the people within our company being able to grow, to make more money, to have more opportunities for Noelle to get out of one position into another that fits her lifestyle. It's not always money driven. It's just fitting their lifestyle. So that becomes your why, and your biggest fear is if I do something wrong or if we make some pivot changes and I mess up, that it does affect the people that I really care about. And so, yeah, I think your why changes for sure for me.
In the back. Yep, Garth.
Yeah, how did you, when you were growing your team, what blueprint did you use, or did you have a mentor, and how did you know when to hire this person?
Yeah.
Will you repeat the question?
Yeah. So his question is, how did I, what blueprint did I use as far as hiring people and scaling and know when to hire, who to hire when, right? I joined a mastermind that was probably life-changing and really helped me scale my business as well. And so what I did was I got in this mastermind that guys were already doing that, and I went off their blueprint. It's not rocket science, but they, when they told me, I can remember the very first mastermind I went to, and this is I don't know, 2.5 to 3 years ago, maybe, I mean, 2.5 years ago, maybe. And I was like, you got a guy that like sells all your properties? Like, you don't do, like, how do you know how much to sell them for? He goes, I just give him a criteria. I go, well, what if he messes up? He goes, well, if he prices it too low, then we just have a bidding war, and then we get a bunch of people to bid it up. If he prices it too high, we don't get any feedback on it, then we just, then we just lower the price, And I go, well, and it's just like, it was just mind blowing. I can't believe that. I was like, and then I remember going back, I was like, I don't think that guy, I don't think that's, but I think it's just letting go of control, and honestly, the big life changing, and then we just, I did it again, so then we hired him. I was like, okay, now we need this person in inside sales. And I think the first 2 people you hire, for sure, I think the first 1 or 2 are scary. And the very first girl lady that I hired, I think I paid her $12 an hour. And I remember telling me, I think we can do this. I was like, she works 25 hours a week, $12 an hour. I was like, I think we'll still be okay if we do this. But it was like a major deal. Now I just hire people left and right, and like, need to slow down a little bit probably. But, so that was big for me. I think it's just getting around people who have done this business like myself and just, hey, how did you do it? And it's just the mindset that it can actually be done. And then once you start seeing people doing a far better job than you, it's awesome. Like when Noelle started buying my first acquisitions person, when she bought houses, like, and she bought them deeper than I did, I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, this is great, you're better than me.
How much did you invest to be in the mastermind?
That was a $25,000 mastermind. And I remember doing that. It was my goal.
Scary.
That was scary. That was scary because we were, not in a position that we could just throw around 25 grand, nor are we today. So, but that was far, that was where it became. Because then I got around people, I'm like, he's not that smart, and he's done this. I'm not that smart, so I can do it. But guys, education is like, I can't tell you whether a conference you go to and whatever mastermind you're in. I just think they're weight in gold to me, anyways. They are what you get out of them, but if you put it into it.
Well, last question.
Here, I guess, but have you ever had to fire a friend or a family member who worked for you? And second, like, how do you utilize mortgage financing year 1 versus current? So I think financing is part of the ability to acquire everything.
Yeah, it is. So,
will you repeat the question?
Yeah, have I ever fired anybody? Any friends or family had to fire anybody? And how did I, with mortgages first year versus now as far as this capital and money? So, we've never had to fire anyone, and we've had to restructure some things and kind of help somebody out. Get if you set up the right criteria and when they're commission based and you set up the guidelines, either people, in my opinion, they'll quit before you have to fire them. If you set it up right, because they'll know they're not winning, and that's not good on them too. So I take that very seriously. I've never been in that position, and so that's kind of worked out in my benefit, but. No, so I've never had to do that. As far as money goes, I think capital is the other thing that you've always got to be working on. You've always got to find more capital. We raised somewhere around $700,000 in private money, and then we got into some hard money capital partners that really we've done a lot of business with. So, and then we're talking to 2 new bankers this week. So we're always like trying to do that. At the beginning, that's why I wholesaled so much, because I didn't have the capital. I didn't have the money to buy. So. I used our own money, which you want to talk about scary, and that wasn't that long ago. I got ourselves in a position, in a financial position where I bought a bunch of properties with our own money because I didn't have the capital partners, the hard money lenders, and I didn't really seek them out, and I put ourselves in a pretty nasty position. It wasn't like we didn't have money, like we were out. It was just all deployed with no way to get it. But I think you've got to constantly be talking. Private money is so easy to get, I think. There's so much money out there right now. You just got to talk about what you do. A lot of it's friends and family. You'd be amazed at how many people have 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand in money, and people that will entrust you with that, and if you do it the right way. And the more you talk about it, the more you attract it. It's like the law of attraction. I think the more you focus on it and talk about it, the more it kind of keeps showing up.
For someone working their first couple deals, what are the hard money terms that are reasonable for both sides?
I think you can find some stuff out there for 10 and 2. I think they're a lot more reasonable now than when I started.
Will you explain what that is?
10, so 2 points and 10% interest. And then I think, right now we've gotten with some capital partners where we're about 8.5 interest, 1.5 points. So in the business that we're in, as long as you're turning it quick, like points are what eat you alive. Like the 8%, 10%, I don't really care about 12%. I mean, I'm only like holding these things 3 to 4 months at the most. So it's the points that you're constantly trying to get worked down. But ultimately, if you're buying the houses right, like, who cares? It's not a buy and hold that you're gonna have for 30 years. You're getting in and out of them really quickly.
Cool. All right, well, thank you so much, Will.
man.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yep.